on 78b, the mission at the bottom. Misha Nasser Reshus Lishlucha, Lakadesh Espera. Person appoints an agent, as Bito, sorry. A person appoints a shaliach, an agent, to marry off his daughter. And then he appoints the agent, sends off the agent, and then the father went and marries the daughter off to someone else. So, and presumably then the shliach gets to where he's going and marries the daughter off to a different person, different husband. So who came first? If the father's Kiddushin came first, then Kiddush of Kiddushin, then that is the marriage. And if the agent did it first, then it's the husband is the one that the agent married her to. But what if we don't know which happened first? Now, we have a doubt. We don't know if she married to this one, she married to that one. And therefore, she requires a get from both of them because maybe she's married to this one, maybe she's married to that one. And she can't keep either one of them as her husband because maybe she's married to the other one. And if they want, or one of the men, one of the husbands can give a get, and the other one can marry her, or can keep her married. Or would have to actually marry her again, because we don't know if the first, if the one who gave the get was the real husband, then the Kiddushin of the other one made no, didn't take effect because she was already married. So one would have to give her a get, and then the other one could marry her. Similarly, if a woman, a mother, makes a shliach for someone to marry off her daughter, and then now we're not talking about a daughter, we're talking about a woman herself. If a woman makes an agent to marry her off to somebody else, and then she goes and independently marries somebody. Same thing. If her marriage, the marriage that she did, took place first, then that's the marriage. And if the agent married her off first, then that's the one that counts. If we don't know which is first, both of them have to give her a get. Or one can give a get and the other can marry her. Now, these are pretty much the exact same case. So when I ask Tzrika, what do you need both? If we only talk about the man and the daughter, Mishum de Gavra Kim Labiyuchsin, you might think that that's because men know about all these issues we've been discussing about yichus, about the rules of marriage and how we know if somebody is marriageable, etc. But the woman, we're assuming that the women don't know this all that well. Maybe her own Kiddushin shouldn't count. Because since maybe she's not really seriously doing her own marriage, but she's doing it as maybe a kind of a plan B or something. In other words, maybe her intention is not really for marriage, and the real intention for marriage is in the hands of the shaliach. So we don't say that. We say that it's the same rules. So what if we only gave the case of the woman marrying herself off, and then we would know that the same would apply for a man and his daughter? Why would we have to state that? We would mishum deitza daiko mitzvah, because never mind the rules of Yuchsin and the details, women are very careful to make sure that women are, they're very much more affected by marriage than a man, because they can only marry one man. And so women are very careful with marriage. I'll let you, but the father's like, what do I care? And the women are also more sensitive to their children being, properly miyuchas, properly have a good genealogical line. But man, maybe they don't care so much about the daughters. Like I don't care who she marries. But we don't say that sricha. We have to say both. Okay. Idmar. Kisha avia baderech v'kisha atzma be'ir. Let's say her father was on a trip and he marries her off to somebody, but she, at the same time or after that, marries herself off to somebody, Varei Bogaris, and she turns out to be this at the age where she's considered an adult, 12 and a half. And then so she is the only so she can marry herself off. So Rav Amar Harei Bogeres Ufanenu, like we know that she is now a Bogeres. We know that she's an adult, and she's married herself off. So that's the one that should count. Shmuel says no. We have to be concerned that they're both maybe the father married her off. Maybe she hadn't become a bogeres yet. She hadn't become an adult yet when the father married her off. I mean, he's on the road. We don't know exactly when this took place relative to her maturity. And so we have to be concerned. We have a suffix, basically. Ema. So now Gemara says, well, what's exactly the case here? If you're saying we're talking about the 6 months, meaning the time she became a Nara at 12 and the time she became a Bogeres at 12 and a half. Rav, Hare Bogeres Ufanenu. Would Rav say that she's a Bogeres, like we know that she's a Bogeres? We didn't know. Hashtu the Bagra. Maybe only now she became an adult. Elalachar Shisha. So it must be after she turns 12 and a half. Maybe so. Would Shmuel say that like they're both, like if we know that she's an adult, then what do we care what the father did? The father no longer has the right to marry her off. So Gemara says, we're talking about the day that she turns 12 and a half. Rav Amar Harei Bogeres Ufanenu. Rav says, look, today she's an adult. Midahashta Bogeres B'tzafran Bogeres. It's like you don't count by the hours of the day. When the sun comes up in the morning, this is the day of her 12 and a half birthday. That's when she becomes an adult. Shmuel Amar Hashtu Daisisimayim. Shmuel says, no, the 12 and a half is like an assumption that that's when she physically matured. So maybe her physical maturation occurred in the afternoon, right? So maybe the father married her off in the morning. She hadn't yet reached that threshold, and she married herself off in the afternoon when she had. So maybe that's why, like we don't know. Like maybe she matured in the afternoon, or maybe she matured in the morning. So that's why Shmuel says we don't know when she became an adult relative to when these two marriage acts took place. So now the Gemara says, Shmuel, Maishnami Mikvah. We already have other cases where there's issues of suffix and we resolve them. So let's look to Mikvah. It's not. We have a Mishnah. Mikvah shenimdad b'nimtza chaser. A mikvah has to be 40 saw of water, a certain volume of water, and if you measure it, and guess what? It's not. It's below that threshold, so it's not a kosher mikvah anymore. Kol tarashanasu al gabav l'mafreya ben rishus yachi ben rishus rabim tameos. Any immersing in that mikvah that took place since the time it was known to have been, let's say on Rosh Chodesh, you measured it and it was full. And then on the 15th of the month, you measured it and it was less than full. It was not kosher anymore. So any immersions that took place in that interim period, where at some point we know that it became less than full, those don't count. And whether Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim, this is a reference to if you have a suffix about a mikvah. So there's a distinction if it's and you handle truma and make something tame. So if it takes place in Rishus Hayachid, then we say it's tahor, and Rishus Harabim we say it's tame. But Shmuel says in this case, looking back, those 15 days, it's regardless. It's not. It is. We consider the mikvah to be deficient. So the Gemara says Shani Hasa. So doesn't that indicate um, that um, that the that you go backwards in time to when you know what the story was. So in the case of our girl who's getting married, the chazaka should of being a bogeres, of being mature, should go backward in time um, to like just like in the mikvah where you measure it now and it's deficient, so you go backwards in time until you know it wasn't deficient. Same thing with the begaris, like you should go backwards in time with the assumption that she is mature. Um, so why does Shmuel treat this case differently? Um, because there you can say it's not just you that there you can say that and maybe it's not you who touched them that we, or maybe it's not the mikvah itself that we look backwards in time until holding its current invalid status until we know it wasn't true. Maybe we're looking at the chazaka of the thing that is tame that you were trying to make tahar. So that we know was tame. So we have to sorry, no, you're touching something that is tahar. So we say that's tahar until proven otherwise. So maybe that is the chazaka that we're saying, but that's not the case with our case with Shmuel's case of the girl getting married. Gemara says, Adrabah, no, like um, you could say the mikvah should be kept in its full status until until the 15th of the month in our case where you know that it became deficient. So Gemara says no, no, you know that like right in front of you, you've just measured it and you know it's it is deficient. So you have to, it makes more sense to carry that backwards. Gemara doesn't really expand on why that is, but it considers the chazaka of the present reality to be stronger, and we have to take that backwards to until we know it wasn't so. So so all right, apply that to the girl in front of you, right? You know that she is an adult, so carry that backwards. So where's Hashu Dubagrat? No, maybe maybe it's like she just became she just matured right now, right? Like in the middle of the day. So Gemara says, oh, so Nami Hashud Chaser, like that's exactly the same as the mikvah. Now you know the mikvah is, now you have evidence that the mikvah is deficient. So Hasa, so Gemara says, well, it's a little different. Hasam Tartula Ryusa, Hachachara Ryusa. There's in the case of the mikvah, there's two factors that advocate for making a tahor. One is the mikvah was originally full, and the other is that the item in question that was tahor. So therefore, you assume that it stays tahor. But in the case of Shmuel and our girl who's getting married, there's only one factor that argues in the case for the father marrying her off, which is her assumed maturity. Okay, so now we understand Shmuel's position. Shmuel, Maishna Mechavis. Now we're going to examine it from a different case, which is a barrel of wine and truma. The Tanya. You were you've got a barrel of wine, and you're supposed to give truma from it. And the problem is that if it goes bad, if the wine becomes vinegar, then you can no longer give truma from you can't take that vinegar and give as truma on the rest of the wine. So you keep checking this barrel of wine, and you're intending to give it for truma, but you haven't done it yet. Eventually it becomes vinegar. So when did it become vinegar? Or when is our assumption that it's no longer valid to be truma for the rest of the crop? Kol Gimel Yomim Vadai, for 3 days, looking backwards 3 days, we consider it, looking forward 3 days from the last time you checked it, we consider that it was still good wine. After that, after the 3 days until the time that you checked it and it was actually gone bad, then that period is a suffix period. It's doubtful. We're mina chavisa mikvah, and we already asked, like, how does that accord with what we saw about the mikvah? Why in the case of the mikvah, it's a sure thing that the mikvah is no good looking back, and in our case, it's only a suffix looking back. Rav Chanina of Surah said, Man Tana Chavis, which Tana is it? Who's the author of that Mishnah about the barrel of wine? Rabbi Shimon, that's Rabbi Shimon, the Gabi Mikvah Nami Sveika Mashay. And in fact, you know what? Rabbi Shimon says the same thing about the mikvah case, that it's a suffix when you look back, not a sure thing like Shmuel said. The Tanya, Kol Harashanasu Al Gaba Vomafreya, we have that brisa which addresses the same case of the Mishnah about the mikvah, the deficient mikvah. So the Mishnah says, this brisa says, anything that you immersed in the mikvah, looking backwards, like in those 15-day interval since it was measured and found full, and now it's deficient, whether the mikvah was a private mikvah or a public mikvah, everything is tamei. Rabbi Shimon Omer b'shusay harabim taharos, b'shusay yachid tolim. Rabbi Shimon says in Rishus Harabim, where a suffix is, where if we have a suffix, we say it's tahor, then it's tahor. And if it's the mikvah as a private mikvah, then we wait and see, right? Or until we have evidence, we can't declare it tahor. We have to keep it in a suffix status. Okay, so aval rabbanan tevel mafreya. Okay, so according to the first author of that Mishnah or that brisa, it is tevel from the beginning of the period, meaning it's a suffix, right? No, tevel is 1 second. Okay, so according to the rabbis, the mikvah, the status of this truma is definitely no truma has been taken. So if we're setting up like Shmuel versus Rabbi Shimon, so does Shmuel agree that it's a definite thing with our case of the girl and the Kiddushin? Whereas Shani Hasam deika lo meimar hame tevel al chaskosov emar lo nitkan. There you can say, keep this produce in its, keep it in the state that you knew it was, which was not had not been truma had not been taken from it, and so we can assume that is a sure thing, but not the girl is not the case. That's not the same case. So Gemara says, no, you can say with the wine that, look, the wine was initially good. You don't know exactly when it became sour, when it became vinegar, so assume that it was until you checked it and you know that it was gone bad, assume that it was good and that the truma was taken, right? So why don't we take that as the chazaka? So Gemara says, similar to what we said before, like, because like now it's become vinegar, it's gone bad, so you have to take that assumption and look backwards. So we could say the same thing about the girl. You could say the same thing about the woman, like now she's an adult, so take that back to the time where it was, during that suffix period, and assume that she was already an adult. So the Gemara says, like we said before, no, like maybe it's only now she became an adult. You could say the same thing about the wine. Hasam tartilarius, we're going to answer the same way we answered before. There's two factors in the case of the wine. There's two factors that argue that it is that, like, maybe it was still good wine, and maybe maybe it was still good wine, there's two factors. L'reusa, title l'reusa. There's two reasons to say it's no good. The produce had not been. We know that produce had not yet been um, had truma taken from it, and B, when you tried to take truma from it, maybe this was already vinegar, and because we know it's now vinegar. But in the case of the woman, in the case of the woman, there's only one factor that says that maybe the father's Kiddushin was good, which is maybe she wasn't Obogeres yet. So, but there's no other factor. So that's why we have a different ruling. Name a Katanai, and maybe this is a Machlokas Tanai. We have a Mishnah, a Brisa. Mi motzi miyadmi. Who collects from who? Who motzi miyadam below raya? So the case is a person who deeds all of his property to somebody else and makes himself penniless, right? So the Mishnah says that if the person was on his deathbed, right, with shliv meirah, it's not quite a goses, but he's getting close to death, then the gift is no good. And then he recovers. Now he wants his money back. He wants his stuff back. So then it's obvious that he was only doing this based on the assumption that he was about to die. Now that he didn't die, so he wants it back. So there's like an implicit condition in there. So mi mosi miyadmi, who mosi miyadam below raya, the guy who's the guy who recovered and gave away his property, he can recover his property without any proof. The hein ein mosi miyadam below raya. Like who has the stuff now? So sometimes possession is 9/10 of the law, as the saying goes. But in this case, he doesn't need any proof that he can just take the property back, but they need a proof that he was, that when he wrote when he gave them the deed to the property, that he wasn't sick yet. He was well enough to do so. Rabbi Yaakov says, Rav Nasan Omer, Imbarihu, if he's well now, when he's trying to recover the property, he has to bring the proof that he was sick then when he gave the property away. But if he's now sick, they have to bring the proof that he was healthy when he was still healthy when he gave them the property. Maybe this is the Machlokas of Rav and Shmuel, because we're talking about something looking backwards, right? So one opinion is that you take his current situation as the determining thing, and looking backwards until we know that wasn't the case, and the other takes the opposite position. So Gemara says, Amar l'charavana, Rav said, could say to you, Anadi Amar Rav Yaakov. No, Rav can say, I can even follow Rav Yaakov that says that the assumption is that his sickness, we look back until we know he wasn't sick. Why? Rav Yaakov Hasam there's the property we know originally belonged to the guy, right? So keep that in his possession until you have a proof otherwise that he gave it to them with a valid transaction. Like you can't say that the girl is eventually going to become an adult, right? Like don't say that keep her as assume that she's a minor until you have evidence otherwise. Like she's the nature of a person is that they're going to grow up. Shmuel Amar Anna the Afilu Rav Nasan, and Shmuel could also hold the opposite position. Rav Nasan, in the case of the property, like most people are healthy, right? Everybody we assume is healthy until we know otherwise. And if you want to, say, no, I was sick, you have to prove it. Right. You have to prove that you were sick when you made if you're healthy now, you have to prove that you were sick when you made this gift. Here, in the case of the girl in the Kiddushin, is she like removing herself from some previous state? No, we know that earlier she was not an adult, and now she is. Again, that's the nature of things. So you can't compare the maturation assumptions about the maturation of a person to the property transactions and a person being sick or well. It's not inevitable. So maybe Nema Kanishnaim, maybe there's a different Machlokas Tanaim we can accord this with. Kisha via Baderach Kisha Atzma Be'ir. Let's say a girl's father is on the road, on a trip, and he marries her off, wherever he is, and she stays home and she marries herself off. Very Bogeris. And guess what? Turns out she's an adult, right? She has become an adult. So presumably since the father left on the trip. So one brisa says that she's an adult. We know we examined her and we know she's an adult. And so that's Rav's position. And the other brisa says no, we have to be it's a suffix because we don't know which came first. My love, Shmuel, isn't this Rav and Shmuel's argument? Where's this low? Shmuel, they're both according to Shmuel. Kan b'makashto, kan b'sheino makashto. The difference here is where the woman, we're assuming that the court or whoever examines her and finds her to be an adult. But what if she says, you know what, like you examined me in the afternoon, but guess what? I already had these signs of maturation in the morning. But in the brisa, in the second brisa, kambashem makashto, then that's where she doesn't make this claim. The name of the mid masnaisa lo pliga morai nami lo plige. Maybe since these brisas, maybe you're resolving these two things, these two sources. Maybe the same is true for Rav and Shmuel. Maybe they're also talking about different cases. One where she makes a claim and the other where she doesn't. Where it says no, but here's where you think so. Rav Yosef, Red Rav Menashe, Midvil Avad Uvda Kavasi Derav. Rav Yosef, the son of Rav Yosef ben Menashe of Deville, the place, Avad Uvda Kavasi Derav. He ruled like Rav Ikpid Shmuel, and Shmuel was annoyed by this. V'yamar Kule Alma Kaile Le Bekabazuta. Looks like everybody is this a sarcastic remark? Oh yeah, he's saying like, everybody else has, modest about their wisdom. They're not, they're afraid to oppose me. But Rav Yosef, he thinks he's so smart that he can oppose me. So clearly Shmuel and Rav were arguing, not talking about different cases. So why was Shmuel upset if Rav and Shmuel have the same opinion? Shmuel was just expressing his opinion about a different circumstance. So why would Shmuel be annoyed? Dilma ki avad uvda b'machashto. Well, maybe the case in which Rav Yosef ruled like Rav was in the case that was like Rav. We resolve this by saying that the halach is like Shmuel, Ravashi, Derav, but another source says the halach is like Rav, Derav, and we do in fact follow Rav. Okay. Next Mishnah. Misha Yatzahu Vishto Lindian Sayam. Man goes overseas with his wife. Ubahu Vishto Banav, and then he returns, and he comes back with the wife. And children. This is the wife that I left with, like her. And available now, and these are the children that were born abroad. So nobody needs any validation of their yichus here. The woman, presumably, we checked her out when they got married here, and the children. He's saying these are the children from her, so their yichus is good too. we believe him. Mace available now, but if he comes back without the wife and says, I'm a widower, she died, but these are the children from her. Maybe Ryle Abanim Venom, maybe Ryle Isha. He doesn't have to bring proof about the wife. He just has to bring proof that the children were the children of the wife that he had when he left town. Isha Sayam Hare he Zu now. What if he comes back? He leaves as a bachelor. He comes back with a wife and children. So what's the status of that wife and those children regarding Yichus? Maybe Rila Isha so if he can prove that the woman is a valid genealogy, then we assume that these are her children. Like we accept his claim that these are her children. We don't have to check them out separately. Mace available now. But if he goes abroad as a bachelor, he claims he got married and had children, and then the wife died. So sorry, you have to bring proof about both the wife and that these are her children. Okay. All these cases where you assume that the children are the children of this woman is only if their behavior demonstrates that this is their actual mother. So they're, in other words, they cling to her, right? They treat her as if she is their mother. Then we can assume that is the case. Tanarabban. Isha Nasasi B'Nidasayam. Brysa says, I went abroad, I married this woman. Maybe Ryle Isha Lavi Ryle Abanim. Then you have to bring proof about the woman, that she's about her genealogy, but you don't have to bring proof about the children. If you prove about the woman, then we assume we accept your claim that these are her children. Well, maybe Ryle Gedolim Lavi Ryle Ktanim, and that's only about adult children, but young children you don't have to bring proof. But when do we say this? If you only have one wife overseas, but if there's two wives and there are children, and we don't know for sure which mother which of the wives is the mother of the children, or of any of the children. Maybe then you have to bring proof about everything, and then we don't distinguish between adult children, minor children. Like we have to investigate to determine what is the parentage, who is the mother of these children that have just appeared from abroad. And we will stop here for today, and we will pick it up here tomorrow at the bottom of 79b. Have a good day, everybody.